Council agreed to settle lawsuits with 6 people over how police handled the protests over George Floyd's murder.
Yeah, the protesters say that officers hurt them with pepper spray and projectiles. The settlements range from $50,000 to $350,000. And our 9 News legal analyst, Whitney Traylor, joins us this morning to talk a little bit more about this settlement. Whitney, good morning.
Good morning. Good to see you both.
I want to start off by asking you what surprised you the most when it comes to the settlement.
Well, I don't know that I was necessarily surprised. And there was actually 2 settlements. So there was one last week for $4.7 million and one this week for $1 million, or I may have gotten those mixed up. Both with the city council had to approve them both. And so I wasn't necessarily surprised, because what goes into a settlement, both sides have to consider how long is it going to take? How expensive will it be? What kind of publicity will we get? And so settlement a lot of times makes sense, even if both sides feel like, hey, we have a stronger case.
On top of the $5 million and the $1 million, there's also the $14 million. I mean, there's several lawsuits here. What's the status of all of those? Yeah,
there's several lawsuits, and this latest approval brings the total to the city to $22.5 million, which is really excessive, which is, all related to the 2020 protests. So the one that is still in appeal is the $14 million that was awarded last year to 12 different plaintiffs, including now State Representative Elizabeth Epps. So that one, the city is appealing that $14 million. The others have been approved. So like this settlement, for example, once City Council approves it, that's it. There's no litigation, no appeal right. The parties have voluntarily settled. So the ones that have been settled are done. I think the only one remaining is the appeal that I mentioned, the $14 million.
A question that we're seeing a lot of is about why the protesters are getting money whenever we also saw property damage during these protests. Why not the business owners getting money as well?
Well, and the business owners, they have some rights as well that they're pursuing. But essentially, this is our First Amendment right. And so in the different cases, what happened, the judge ruled for different reasons. For example, in one case, the judge, after they filed the lawsuit in June of 2020, the judge put on a restraining order saying the police couldn't aim at your head or your back, those kind of things. There was a number of stipulations. In one case, the police violated those stipulations, and it was well known. In another case, they were imposing the curfew discriminately. So in other words, the curfew was 8 p.m., and they were only targeting the protesters, the Black Lives Matter protesters, and instead of just ticketing them, they would take them to jail. So there were a number of different reasons. And so, our First Amendment right is if you're peacefully protesting, you have these rights. And so, and when we talk about peaceful, we say there was no violence being exerted towards the police, if you will.
Do you think this all sets a precedence now moving forward?
I do. I think it set a major precedent with respect to the judges giving direction to the police in terms of here's what you can and can't do. And that's how our law is made. There's a law, a statute or whatever, and then a judge or a case will come forward and there'll be parameters around that. So this is good that now we know, hey, you can't use less than lethal projectiles. You can't aim at the head. You can't, do those kind of things.
It's going to change more of what the police do on their side.
Exactly.
Well, Whitney, thank you for breaking some of that down for us. We appreciate your time this morning.